I've always been curious about the craft of filmmaking. So in this series, I discuss exactly that with the people who make films. My name is Neville Shah, and this is not a masterclass. In this episode, I talk to somebody whose work I've admired a lot and I've loved the way he goes about his craft, Shakun Batra. If you haven't seen Kapoor and Sons, you should be watching Kapoor and Sons right now and then come back and watch this episode. The scene we're talking about is the Chaand Mehbooba scene in particular. Let's get to it. First of all, Shakun, thank you so much for doing this. Genuinely excited, big fanboy in this space. What I really like about the scene that we're going to discuss, and I'm going to dive straight into it, is I think that it's one of the few scenes in the film that doesn't have a parallel track. It's confined to itself. We're currently talking about this scene, or the scene where the family comes back home. The Chacha ji comes home along with his family, and they've just finished dinner, and they're about to have this nice little family
I
moment.
used to call, I just tell you, I used to call it Chaand Mehbooba. The name of the scene, that sequence was called Chaand Mehbooba.
It was when you were on your shoot schedule, what are we shooting today? Chaand Mehbooba.
Chaand Mehbooba, that's what it's called.
I think it's one of the few scenes in the film that in itself is complete. There's no parallel track. All the characters that are important are available to you here to play with. The end of the scene is very exciting because and I'm talking about almost all the way to the end where Ratna and Rajat are almost in bed, and she sort of ends that moment by saying, "Hum phir se khush kyun nahi ho sakte?" First of all, how do you write a scene like this? You, Shakun the writer, what does he type?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I do is, especially this is also a part of this bigger sequence. You know, as you said, the idea is we've seen this family fight so much; they're always at each other's throat. That one scene can't just take all of that away. So you have to build it into a sequence where things start to feel like they can come together. So as you said, you know, it starts with the song and everyone coming together, and then it slowly goes to a place in their bedrooms where they are with the grandfather, the kids are with the grandfather, the parents are sleeping in the same room, and we've created reasons for why they're now sleeping in the same room, because their chacha chachi have arrived. So, you know, you're trying to kind of build up to that moment. The job of the scene was to give a hint into what this family could be like if they came together. So you wanted to give a glimpse of what is possible before it all goes down south.
What also is nice about this scene is that it's embedded in nostalgia. That, hey, we were like this once, yeah? We can become like this again. And that sort of parenthetically closes the scene, and you leave with this warmth saying, Sab theek hone wala hai, till, of course, it goes down the gutter. Now, just if you can, from a technical standpoint, Shakun wrote this along with his partner, and then Shakun directed this. Did you visualize it like this? Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So I think, you know, the good thing with me and Aisha, both when we wrote the scene, was we are very aware of what we are writing, and we are very aware when we are shooting that it doesn't have to be exactly what you're writing. To give you an idea, I think the scene of all these, you know, Chacha Chachi, the kids coming together, all of that before the song starts is about 6 pages long. And the song is literally 4 lines. It just says, the family sings together, and we can finally see that there's hope in it and they're warm to each other. Something like that. Now, I'm generally going on set with the feeling of how it sounds, not how it's written. And then for me, it is how do I visually capture that mood, the feeling, and the sound that I had in my mind. And sometimes a song helps, sometimes a track of background helps. You know, on set, I'm not chasing a number of shots, number of takes. I'm not chasing those things. I think those things are technical and they can get boring. What you're chasing is a feeling. And I think it's important to define the feeling.
So now tell me, when you start imagining the scene, because clearly it's a blank page. You had 4 lines and you had it in your head.
Right.
Do you board this? There's a lot of people moving around the cameras constantly. The camera in this case, what you would call is a family member. How are you blocking a scene that is just as chaotic?
I think a couple of things. I think also partly to answer your previous question, the idea of nostalgia. You know, I mean, I think where the scene comes from is how I've seen my family. When my eldest sister got married, my chacha sang this song, and I've seen my chacha sing this song, and I've seen the family members kind of come together. And it's a weird thing. I never realized then that became a very important memory in my mind. And that's how I now remember our family get-togethers. That's a song. That's the feeling I very clearly knew. What I was going for, as I said, is to capture the intimacy. Chaos is a part of the intimacy, and that's why the chaos is never so much that it takes away from it. So you're creating all of this to get that feeling. Generally, what I do is I keep a day off before important scenes, and this was one of the 4 or 5 scenes where I thought was very important. So I'll keep a day off. I'll plan a day off before these scenes, and what I'll do is on the day off, I'll go to set with my cameraman, call the actors if hopefully for a couple of hours, and then I just play the music. In this case, play the music and be like, okay, if you are sitting here and you are standing there, what if we move this way and what if we move that way? Oh, okay, it'll be nice if he was there and he came across this way and he picked up the rose on the thing, because also you're trying to not make the scene boring and keep layering it with new information, right? So they're all sitting down before the song. There's a joke, the guitar, the music starts, and then how people start to move. The father gets up, Ratna gets up. Ratna's obviously in the beginning not so sure that he wants to, interact so in this way with Rajat, because they've been quite far apart so far in the film, right? But then Siddharth walks around with the rose and he gives the rose to the father. And then the father in that moment feels it and, gives it to the mother. So you're also trying to layer that communication in the song. So
and the muffler and those kind of things and the hat, is that when you're on set, you're like, I know Rishiji is wearing this thing, and so maybe this movement can be part of the choreography, or is it like this is the right thing to do? Is it just that?
No, I think, you're always in your head, I mean, if you read the script, none of this is written, the flower, the muffler, the cap, you don't have to write it. But as a director, in your head that you'll need these sub layers to kind of come, right? So at the back of your mind, when you're rehearsing, you're looking for props. You're looking for something that will communicate that.
How many cameras did you shoot the scene with?
We had 2. Because the space is not that big. So, if you do anything more than 2, it's just going to start crowding in, and you're going to be in the space of the actors. And the idea is that you play the song. So this is what you do. You play the song and you've done a bit of choreography, but you've also left room for people to enjoy. Exactly. So, Sid taking the cap from Rajat's head, putting it on his head in the end, and that's not anything I have done. That's just people in the moment doing what they're doing. Or actually Sid puts it on the mother's head. So those are things I'm not defining. Fawad feels the need to get up. I had written a small line that girl who comes home, Alia, the oldest daughter of the Chacha, I'd written a line. Sometimes, these secondary characters you define in one line, but that gives them their behavior for the scene. So I'd written, she's perpetually on a phone. So, then even when this is going on, she's recording it on the phone, and all of that then becomes a part of, just as I said, man, I can go on, we can go on. I can give you lots and lots of it, but you have to really rely on actors to come together.
When I was breaking down the pre-interval scene, what, and I don't even know if you thought about it, but it's when you cut, invariably during a fight, it's Rishiji fighting with Boobli has picked up that guy, and you move to a frame of 4, and then when you come into the house, there's still 4 people in the shot. I know you haven't probably at that point thought about it, but it's very post-mortem. So I'm just asking, in this scene, is there any symbolism that you tried to intellectualize and then put? Because a lot of people are like, I'll park the camera here so that I'm looking up at them to feel this. Is there?
I think what we're talking about is imagery, and imagery that communicates more than just dialogue, right? And yes, imagery plays an important part, and I often break it down to key images in a script or in a film, and what are the key images I'm going to achieve. The imagery I wanted is from outside the house as we track across. It's dark and inside is lit, and I wanted that imagery to give you a sense of togetherness.
Then what I'm most curious about is, what are the Shakunisms? If I watch 4 or 5 Shakun things, what is it that I will notice?
Yeah, I think it's not like that I have rule for everything universally speaking. Course. No, I don't. But obviously going into a story, I had told myself that I have to visually graph it, especially there are so many fights. How do I visually graph it so they don't start becoming, monotonous and boring, and you start feeling the pressure. And I think one of the things that I decided is I wanted to document these fights as if they're in real time, real place. And I think that's why, as you said, there are no close-ups in the first fights. You know, in the second fight as well, there are not as much. But in the third one, when things have really gotten serious towards the climax, you are now coming into close-ups. Now they have more meaning. And I really think the less you use close-ups, the more impact they have when you use them. And sometimes you have to really save your close-ups for when you really want to, like, you know, smack people with that feeling.
You want to break this down because you took 2 days to shoot the scene.
Right.
Why did it take so long? I mean, if you had 2 cameras, you would have had enough time to do enough coverage, you know, in an 8-hour, 12-hour shift.
You know, it's a 6-page scene. On an average, a director tries to get like between 4.5 pages a day is great. But also, you know, what was going on is that I wanted to create this song and the feeling, and I didn't want to choreograph the song. I wanted to just do it, shoot it, and find a way of putting it together. This one had a lot of characters in like places. So blocking everyone, how they're going to move. Also, you don't want to tire the actors and get them bored, right? You want that fresh energy as if it's happening for the first time. And if you're going to make actors be like, oh, I need a close-up and I need a mid-shot, I'm going to do this. And now you turn around and you take the close-up from here. You just want that free-floating energy, and you actually want to create somewhat of a party on set, right? You want people to enjoy. You want them to have a good time.
This family is a typical family. They do not, they keep their problems to themselves. अंदर छुपा के रखते हैं जितना भी हो सकता है. भले ही वो चाचा जी के साथ क्यों ना हो. You know, it's that kind of a family. You've seen one eruption in front of a plumber, which was one guy in that observer view. Then you see one eruption where only Ratna comes and, for the world, Ratna comes and throws the biscuits from the dabba onto Rajat. And here, this family is now holding in these secrets. Do they also feel the emotion? I mean, have you told them that you're going to feel like now everything's going to get better? Because if it was real life, that's what everyone would feel.
You know, I think that's a very basic emotion, which I think most actors knew, even Ratna, Rajat, you know, when they're in bed. They know that there is there is a longing for things to be better. And there is that longing to be like, but I think what happens is generally when you're in a moment like that you're so present in the moment, you're not thinking and looking at it as an outsider as to what's happening in your life. You are just enjoying the moment. So you don't want to overburden the actors with so much emotions. You're just saying, if they enjoy this moment, the audience will long for them to come together. It's not they are as characters longing to come together. You want to create a sense that the audience wishes for that to happen.
Okay, so let's talk about lensing. How do you decide to lens this in particular? But obviously, this is part of a visual narrative that you've already decided as part of the film. So how do you come from page to screen in your head? Do you board first at all? Do you board on a regular basis?
My first film, I boarded like good 60% of the film. You know, it was very composition driven, composition heavy. I wanted to kind of have everything symmetrical and placed and all of that. And I had very categorically told myself that this Kapoor and Sons, I wanted to follow my instincts, and I didn't want to pre-decide a lot. I wanted to decide on emotions and feelings, but I didn't want to decide on how I'm going to shoot those feelings. So it was kind of challenging going in because I was so used to a methodical way of working that I had to constantly push myself in this direction. So I wouldn't storyboard. And I wouldn't even design shots too far in advance. When I'm on a tech recce, I would say, okay, this is how I think it would take place. This is the general feeling I'll have, and maybe we shoot this, and you know, the general axis and the general feeling of like, we'll probably, you know, need a couple of things from here. We need to pick up this. But a lot of it was on the go. I knew in the morning I would first block the scene and let actors feel comfortable with how they're walking into the scene. Then I'll sit with a pen and paper and I'll draw like, you know, cameras and stick figures to see where the camera should go. And generally I would just have my phone during rehearsals and like just try see where or it feels right? Where can I have depth? Where does the light feel good? You know, in terms of lensing, I think this was halfway into the film. By then, I'd already figured out that for the house, anything between 25 and 50 felt good
Yeah.
as a lens. You know, it felt right for the faces. It felt right for intimacy. It felt right for you know, feeling the togetherness. And I think because you want to feel the togetherness in this scene, there's a lot of what I call, you also know, is suggestions of shots, right? Somebody's in suggestion looking into the other, somebody else's suggestion. So there are a lot of what do you call dirty over shoulders and that to kind of give it that intimacy, right? And there are very few clean shots because you're not.
That's what's nice. Even on a 25 or a 35, and you can see it even when they're talking or part. In this case, where they're moving around, even though you're on a 35, which is fairly wide. Traditionally speaking, it's fairly wide. You're still getting a dirty movement of someone in the way. Someone's coming in. It's almost like you're trying to document getting out of this person's way. And
yeah, you know, it started way back in, like, with any cinema verite film you see. You know, they were always like trying to find that little dirtiness into it. It was never clear frames, and you know, and I think that's what you're feeling is like. In fact, I was constantly like telling. And it was very free floating camera. So I would generally just tap my cameraman and be like, no, just let's go behind it. Let's come behind this, you know, and then he would have his own ideas and he'd be like, oh, I'm just going to move in. And what you want is you want that freedom. You don't want to dictate it too much. So if he's feeling it, let him go for it. And then you have another camera. You like, okay, you know, you need to come back, pull back, this going. Yeah. It's very organic. Much like on the go strategy.
Which is really scary.
You have framework in mind. If you've done your homework of aligning yourself with your creative collaborators, then it's much easier because you're all thinking the same thing, right?
The second last question before I move into just generic stuff about you. So the first fight, they explode at the smallest thing. In the second fight, they again explode, and it's the first time that you see dirt amongst the family. That this is a family that has no problem in insulting each other and going for the jugular. And then in the third fight, despite it being a letdown for everybody, somebody or the other in the family has betrayed the other person. And that is the worst form of betrayal, where this guy's book has been given by his own mother to his brother. Yeah. There's in the mother's sentiment, she has been thinking this guy has a girlfriend for so long, he's gay. I mean, come on. So, you know, like everybody is being betrayed constantly. So how do you hold that information, and then how much does it take you to not let them explode? Like, how do you make that decision? And you were laughing, so first start with it.
First of all, I find it so retarded that all of this shit happens in one day. And literally side by side.
But that's coincidence,
I mean,
right?
yes, it works in a film, but you know, if it happened in a real family, like people would just start getting heart attacks and falling off the fucking cliff.
Hey, listen, I lost mom and got divorced in the same year. Okay, so it's fine.
Same year. Now imagine in one evening, everyone betrayed everyone. But it's just sometimes I feel like, holy shit, that is too much.
That's the willing suspension of disbelief, I guess, that cinema allows you.
And you've created, you've hopefully created a plot that makes it believable. You know, you've hopefully weaved everything together that when it comes to that, it feels inevitable. You know,
and so the pre-climax sort of sets that up for you. So when she goes to bed and wakes up in the morning, he is genuinely going to end it.
So that's what you're hoping. Yeah, you're weaving in a way where you are. I mean, as a filmmaker, what are you really playing with? Is two things: curiosity and expectations, right?
Sure.
You are pulling people's curiosity. You're making them curious. You are hoping to lead them in a certain direction. You know, you're going to pull the rug under the carpet. It's like, you know, I mean, that's the whole fun of it. It's like you're going to take them there, but are you really going to let them have it the way they think they're going to have it? No, you're going to have fun with it. I have even forgotten what was your question.
The question was, how did you manage to control in the third fight where it requires you to fucking explode because you've got the ultimate betrayal?
Okay. Yeah. So I think the way it works in a sequence that long. Again, climax it's probably the longest sequence of the film. And for, as you said, rightly said, there's a pre-climax and then there's a climax. So you're genuinely starting to graph from pre-climax into all the way till not even climax. You're graphing it all the way to Rajat's death. That's like one big chunk you're trying to graph, right? And within that, there are like different peaks. Every character has a different peak. But if it all peaks, it could also be really annoying if it's like constantly like everyone just screaming or shouting. So you're trying to find ways that it doesn't become just like a cacophony, but it has given you enough breathing time before it explodes again. So you're hoping that even in the edit or even the way you're using BG, is that you can graph in a way where people won't feel tired. It can be very exhausting also to see like a 15-16 page blowout. So you want to see how much of it will hold, and obviously a lot of it is exercise in during the edit, right? It's like, oh, is it sounding so? Hopefully, you've covered yourself in the coverage. You've covered yourself. You know where are the breathing rooms for a situation like this. You know where you want to hold back, and you know where you want to push in. Like you want to push in when Siddharth finally bangs on the door and comes in and starts fighting. You want to push into that. But then after that, when the mother finally tells him that she had given the book, there is a lull. Because you want to come to the accident. So you can't go from like Siddharth and Fawad fighting and boom, and the car accident, because then you lose the impact, right? So you want to now create a bridge of a little bit of a reduce the pace before you give them the big push. So I think it's that, and a lot of it is genuinely like in your mind as you're writing, as you're thinking. A lot of it is also, as you said, is craft. It's like the craft of how to build, right? How you're building a story and how you're building emotion and character arcs and graphs and all of that.
This is real family, etc. So color palette, etc. You know what you're going to go with. It's not necessarily a stylized family. It's not that. So you're going to stay within the real. So not so much there. But when you're casting, obviously these are all great actors. And when you get an ensemble that's as powerful as that, what do you decide pitch wise? Like, do you go to everyone's high ground or do you go to everyone's low ground? Like, is there a lowest common denominator, a lowest common, a highest common denominator? Like, what is the?
I don't think you are deciding the pitch and tone depending on the actors. I think you're defining the pitch and tone as per the story, and then you're hoping that obviously that actors are obviously all extremely talented to bring them to that pitch and tone. So it's not the pitch and tone of an actor, although yes, there's a little adjustment. You see somebody do a certain way and you can go here and you can go there, but with certain actors you can't go certain places, because then it can go off what you're trying to off balance. So yes, you have a pitch and tone for the scene, you have a pitch and tone for the film, and for a specific scene, for a specific moment. And then most of the times, I've been very fortunate. You have actors who would hit it very easily, who would hit it with most comfort. There would be days which are challenging, not just for actors, but also for me as a director, because I'm juggling between multiple things and I'm not feeling that I'm getting where I want to go, So as far as that it's a collaborative effort, and you are all hoping to land the scene, because sometimes you feel like you're getting there and an actor will come up to you and be like, hey, I didn't feel it. And you're like, oh yeah, I hear you. Okay, so what do you think is missing? And they'd be like, oh, I feel that if I did this way, maybe that. And then you're like, okay, let's try it. And then you're like, oh fuck, yeah, I didn't see that coming, On the other hand, sometimes an actor is extremely sure of what they need to do, and you're like, hey, this is great, but let's backtrack. I feel we've gone, we are heading in probably a wrong direction.
The reason I asked that question is because you do ads as well. How do you approach an ad so different? Because a feature, it's yours from start to finish. It's your baby, and you've got this 45-day journey. And one sub question in the middle of this: when you're directing, do you watch anything else, or do you isolate yourself from any other form of creative thing? So how do you approach an ad film or a shorter investment piece? Because obviously the narrative format there is different. Do you intentionally say, okay, I need the shot to be 2 seconds, and in 2 seconds I need this information? Is that the approach, or is there another way to do it?
So yeah, and just to quickly answer your advertising question first, it's not a world that's alien to me. You know, I started
Sure.
in advertising. I was assistant directors like Ram and Shujat and a whole bunch of advertising directors that I learned from. Um, so I think I love advertising. I think it's a great place to hone your skills, and at the same time, like, it keeps you on your toes. I think
Yeah.
you can do a bunch of features and you could still not manage a good ad. And that took me a lot of learning in the beginning. Is like, is the timing of it, and how
Yeah.
quickly can you communicate something. You can't take sometimes more than 3 seconds to communicate an emotion.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly love that. I think sometimes actually I've felt like advertising is more challenging than a feature sometimes. Not
Yeah.
at a, I think you look at them as 100 meters and marathons, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a quick adjustment of the two. It's like when you're running 100 meter, you are going in with that. You need to put in that boost in it, right? From the word
Yeah.
go, you need to fucking boost in it. When you're doing a marathon, you have time to prepare. You have time to warm up, cool
Yeah.
down, and then take off. And I think that preparation I really enjoy. It throws me all over the place, but I thoroughly enjoy it. Um, and I feel as a filmmaker, my pace has improved because of advertising.
Hmm.
Because of advertising, my quick thinking of how to adjust things have improved. How to adjust performance, how to adjust quickly adjusting the camera. It has really improved. So I think, or even my edit decisions have improved. Because sometimes
Yeah.
in a 30 seconds. So if my movie is feeling long, I'm much quicker on, like, oh, I know how to trim this scene. I know how to trim that scene.
Hmm.
Which I really, really have immense amount of gratitude for being able to have one foot in this and one foot in the other. But when I'm doing feature, then I completely forget ads, and when I'm doing ads, then I'm genuinely hoping that I'm not doing multiple things. I'm not somebody who can do too many things at the same time. So you got to understand setup payoff differently. Sometimes in a feature, setup payoffs happen over, let's say Kapoor and Sons, the main setup payoff happens over like an hour long is the
Yeah.
book, and the payoff is an hour, 20
Yeah.
minutes, 30 minutes into the film.
Yeah.
So I think how you hold intrigue, how you pay off intrigue is completely different in both mediums. But the idea of intrigue and setup and payoff is the same, right?
Yeah.
Just how long you hold that for. You asked me another thing, right? Which I
Do you
forgot.
isolate yourself from watching anything while you're shooting so that you don't have
I
influences?
To be honest, when you're shooting 12-hour days, you're prepping for the next day, you're waking up early. I really don't think most people have time to watch. Sometimes I would listen to a music that helps me be in the zone of the film. Sometimes I would just go back and watch, like, for Kapoor and Sons, like Hannah and her Sisters, a film that it was so warm and fuzzy, and I remember that feeling. So just sometimes to remind myself of the feeling of the film,
Hmm.
I'll just watch a scene or two scenes. I'm like, yeah. I know what I'm going for. That's the
Hmm.
feeling. But it's not
Correct.
something you can intellectually communicate. It's just like, I feel it,
It's a
right?
feeling then. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it starts with that. But I'm watching when I'm prepping. Not a lot, but once in a week I'll watch something. But I find it very hard to throw myself in a completely different genre, completely different mood.
Yeah.
That throws me off. If I'm doing a family film, and I can, yes, one off I can go watch like an Interstellar. But if you ask me to watch 5 action films and 2 of these, it throws me off completely.
I know Woody Allen's a big inspiration. What else do you aspire to? What do you, and more, also what's interesting is, because you said this, that you do a lot of don'ts when you're making your film. What are the things that genuinely you've looked at and have fallen in love with, that made you fall in love with cinema? And I know you AD'd a lot as well. So what is there a work style that has stuck with you, that you still keep? And then what is it that you dislike? Like, is there any work that you are like, that's not for me, or not the way I would do it?
So answering the latter first, is there any part of filmmaking that I don't like?
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, in the beginning, I just I don't like dealing with production problems. That was earlier days. And then you realize that as a director, to get the results you want, you genuinely have to be involved with everything, because, a bad day of production can affect what you want to achieve. I have a personal taste and aesthetics and things I like and things I don't like, but that's not important. I think over the years, I've come to a point where I think it's not a zero sum game. It's not that if I exist, then only this kind of stuff should happen. I think everyone should just do what they want, man. As far as I can make my movies and hopefully keep my head down and do my shit and get people to work with me that I want, I'm very happy for everybody. I just don't, and I'm not going to change what I want to make just because that would make more money or, this or that. My decisions are driven from what I want to create.
Sure.
And yes, I understand logistics. I understand production. I understand budgets and how all of that works. But I'm always hoping that that's not the decision making at the initial stage. So you have something and then you mold it a little bit depending on how you see it's going to be more feasible to make.
What's interesting is not the word compromise, but the word mold. Like shape it to something that you like, but don't compromise. Is an interesting way. And inspiration wise, what is it that
whatever you want to call it, man, compromise, mold, adjustments, I mean, there's enough corporate language which makes it sound more interesting. And there are days which is absolutely garbage. You want to, fucking punch somebody in the teeth, and that's also real, and you want to go back and you want to just like put your head on your fucking pillow and feel like you want to just shout. That happens. So let's just be real. It happens to all of us. The thing is that you hope that you don't carry that with you the next day. So you need to find something that will allow you to go back into a problem solving place, and I think that's an important thing that I constantly remind myself. Solve it. Don't just react with anger. Don't just react with why is it happening? React with, sure, it's happening. It shouldn't have happened. Next time we got to be better with it. But what's the solution right now for this problem?
What inspires you? Like for me, no matter what happens, once a year, I will watch West Wing. No matter what happens.
I love West Wing.
I have seen it.
You watch all
the
of
whole thing.
9
seasons? All 7 seasons, yes. Currently,
but every year you watch all 7?
Yes.
That's insane. No, but can I tell you, I do exactly what you're doing is that sometimes rather than watching too many, I rewatch the one thing, because you can absorb and learn a lot more by watching the one thing as opposed to going horizontal. I always feel pick up your 5-6 best things that you love, and instead of going horizontal, just go vertically deep into it. Just try understand. And it's subconscious. Like the more you watch it, the more you can pick on it. You can pick up the camera, the blocking, the lighting, how it is all adding up. Oh, he did this in season 1, and look, he just paid it off in season 3. I don't think the first time around you can catch it so quickly,
Absolutely not.
But you can see the finer layering, the weaving, the threads. And I think that's where you can thoroughly start enjoying craft. When you're like, Shakun, how the fuck did he do this? And like there was a time where I had a document on Final Draft called Shakunism, where I would watch Westworld and I'd be like, oh man, how did he create that rhythm, the feeling of a scene, right? So I would write and cut, copy, paste that scene into that folder, because I was like, and then I collected enough of it to see that, oh, I know that this is his thing. This is how he builds.
Apart from being an AD, you've studied film, which is a very interesting place to come from. Like I haven't studied film, and a lot of directors don't go to school for filmmaking. They should. But the thing is, so the curiosity, I think, is what should we read? What should we watch? What should we absorb, see? I mean, apart from, watch everything you can get your hands on. But
I think, again, you see, I didn't stumble upon Woody Allen because somebody else told me to watch it. I think we all organically stumble upon something that we truly love. And then we feel the need to go back. And it's the thing nobody can tell you. I finished watching Annie Hall and I immediately knew I wanted to watch it again. And the next week I knew I immediately wanted to watch it again. And it's not somebody was like, look, go back and learn from it. It was none of that. I was just like, how did I enjoy this so much? Right? And if I'm enjoying it, why am I enjoying it? And I think what happens by the time you're watching it the third time, you're like, what am I enjoying in this?
Yes.
And why am I enjoying it?
Yeah.
So, I think you should pick what you enjoy and just forget, like, I'll be honest, man, I haven't watched Star Wars. And like people would completely
You get a
tell
lot
me,
of shit for it. Yeah.
all for going to a film school. I haven't seen some of the greatest films ever made.
Yeah.
I just never had the curiosity. I'll be honest, I watched Lawrence of Arabia, I've watched The English Patient. I've never once wanted to watch it again. I mean, sure, there is unbelievable craft that I can learn from, but I was just like, oh no, man. I just watch like the worst Woody Allen film again, then to watch English Patient again. I just couldn't get into it. So like, dude, I would hate to tell anyone what to watch, but what I'm saying is, if you watch something and you love it, and you organically feel the need to go back, then there is something you need to pick from it. And I've also watched bad films where I'm like, shit, I need to watch it to know what went wrong, because it had something, but it didn't deliver.
It didn't deliver.
I forget the name of a film now completely. Something with people or whatever. It was whatever. Some family film. It was a American family film. And I just started writing Kapoor and Sons, like wasn't even down my first draft. And I was watching this film and I was like, oh man, that film just didn't work. And because I got so worried about what if I'm doing something wrong that I can't see, that I went back to watch it. And I watched it maybe one more time, if not two, and I made notes of what didn't work.
Okay.
And I think that's where I also was like, every scene cannot be about shouting and screaming. Every scene is not about arguments. You need to feel the warmth of this family at some point. You need to have enough breathing room. And
you want them to win. Yeah.
Those are the notes I think I kept writing down. I generally, I have these little spiral books that I make before every film, and I keep building on these spiral books. And then, I'll just like highlight shit in them as I go along. And these are just notes. And then I'll just be like, highlight that note as to, I have to remember this. And that becomes the do's and don'ts, and it's very crazily just put together. It's no, I don't have a defined way. These are just my feelings that I'll write, and then 2 days later I'll read and I'm like, highlight this. And sometimes, like after a draft or two, I just go through highlights. And if I've thoroughly absorbed what I've highlighted and I've learned something, then I'll finally cross the highlight, because I'd be like, I've already implemented this into my script. So stuff like that, but no defined way, to be honest.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shakun. Really, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
you didn't have to, and thank you for coming on a Saturday during your quarantine. So,
I mean, I have nothing better to do, to be honest.
Oh, thank you.
I just have to do a grocery run.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks so much, Shakun. Bye-bye. See you.